Dispatchers help callers on the worst days of their lives. For over 25 years, we've been there. A silent partner in millions of calls thanks to our redundant and diverse networks that ensure call delivery. Today, cities are bigger, traffic more congested, and the challenge is more complex. But you're never alone, because InDigital is quietly improving, implementing, and driving the next generation of 911, so you're supported in every situation. Make the switch at indigital.net.
Have you ever met a 911 professional and asked, what's the worst call you've ever taken? Well, here's your answer. I heard your last breath the night you flipped your four-wheeler. I tried to call you the day you committed suicide by driving your car into a tree. Blue face, cold to the touch. I helped you with CPR after you found your infant face down, not breathing. It messed me up. I did everything I could, but it wasn't enough. You were with me from the beginning, Grandma. 27 years later, I took the 911 call when you died. How fitting to be there for me in the beginning, and I was there for you in the end. I miss you, Grandma. I am 911. This is but a glimpse into the world of emergency dispatch. But what is it really like to answer a call during someone's nightmare? What is the impact of the first responder answering the call? Available on Amazon or where you purchase your favorite books and ebooks. Imagine listening. Your worst day is our everyday.
This is Jordan, and you're listening to the Code 7 Podcast Network.
Warning. This episode contains the 3 A's of podcasting: adult content, adult language, and awesomeness. You've been warned.
That call in particular, after having the debrief and hearing about just the physical descriptors of the kid, and they were talking about what kind of clothes he had on and what kind of shoes he had on, and when that particular fireman described his shoes, that day when I got home, my son's shoes were the exact same sitting by the door.
Oh, geez.
And I just saw the shoes and I just picked them up and threw them right in the trash because, I just could not look at them.
Right.
Because they were just an immediate remembrance of that child.
Welcome to Within the Trenches, true stories from the 911 dispatchers who live them.
Hey, what's going on? This is Ricardo with the Code 7 Podcast Network, and this is going to be Within the Trenches, true stories from the 911 dispatchers who live them. This episode is sponsored by InDigital, a leader next-gen core services, and a big shout-out to subscribers as always. And there are a lot of things going on. I'm currently in North Carolina. My partnership out here with the North Carolina State 911 Board, we have been working together for probably about a couple of years now, coming out to the state, and recently, within the last year, also doing classes, recording episodes of these 911 professionals and their powerful stories, capturing all of those. So it has been very, very good. So shout out to the State 911 Board. Thank you so very much for your partnership. And we've got another guest today, and I've got Shanna with me, and she's a 911 shift supervisor and CTO with Henderson County Sheriff's Office right out of North Carolina. How's it going?
Good. Thank you for having me.
Oh, I'm excited to have you here. And one of your partners on the last episode was here who was on and had no sleep, and you have had only 1 hour of sleep. So I feel for the both of you because I remember what that was like, but also I've been out of dispatch for 11 years now, and the sleep schedule, it still kind of stays the same. It doesn't go away. Well, maybe for some it does, but it hasn't for me. I will end up staying up until about 2 or 3 in the morning, and then my internal clock wakes me up at 6 in the morning. It never fails. And the dispatch ear, it doesn't go away. How does the dispatch ear for you? Have you had those moments where you're, I don't know, out to dinner with somebody or something, and you can hear what's going on all the tables?
Definitely. I tend to pick up on conversations or other things going on, and then the people that I'm with, they like, listening to me or are you listening to something else?
Yes. Yeah, that is, I tell people that it's a gift and sometimes a curse, because of course there's some things you don't want to be hearing, but then, you hear someone 5 tables down and you're like, oh, they got in trouble.
Yeah.
Like something just happened over there. So again, as I said, I'm excited to have you on here and learn more about you. So how did you get involved in public safety to begin with?
I guess it was in 2012. I had a family member who was like, "Hey, I think you'd be great at this job. Apply." And so I filled out the application and went through the process. Came into it with absolutely no idea what I was getting myself into.
Did you get a chance to do a sit along at all?
No.
Oh man. Okay. So
No.
you were the same, that you ended up getting to just kind of get thrown in. So, okay. You end up going through the process, you get the job, and you're walking into dispatch that first day. Because you hadn't been in there or anything or seen it, what was that like for you? Like, if for those who are watching and listening, to kind of paint the picture for them, what are you seeing when you walk in? Like tons of monitors, people, like 10 different mice or whatever, keyboards. And also, how are you feeling at that time?
Well, my first night was a night shift,
Mhm.
which was, of course, had never worked nights ever. And so I came in and there was 3 other people on the shift. And I mean, they couldn't have been any more welcoming than they were, but it was just very nerve-wracking to come in and actually see what went on inside dispatch.
I can almost feel what it is that you're saying, because I remember the same thing. The welcoming part, not as much. It was a little different when I went into the central dispatch, but I remember walking in and seeing all the people in there, and it was only 3. It was a minimum of 3 during the week, and then 4 over the weekend. But still, me coming from a single seat PD, and it's just me by myself for 8 hours, and now having to figure out this new dynamic with a team and all of that, all of these different monitors, the call volume is a lot higher. I remember walking in and thinking, am I going to be able to do this? Because I'm watching someone do something that you would think an octopus would have to be able to do, because they're just moving and moving and moving and moving, and they're eating at the same time. And I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this. Did you have kind of those questions as well? Like, am I going to be able to do this at all?
Um, I didn't think that I wasn't going to be able to do it, but it
Mhm.
was just, I had to just kind of realize all the hats that you kind of have to wear, and just, you just have to figure out your own rhythm,
Mhm.
I guess.
No, that's right. That's very true, because sometimes you can get into your head, and the people that you're working with, you might want to try to mirror what they're doing, and you realize, that's not it's not fitting for me. And like you said, you got to find out your own rhythm. You got to figure out your own things. And then when you start getting into it, it's like, what was I even having any of those other thoughts for? Because now I'm in it to win it, and I'm just working it. So do you feel like it got into your blood rather quickly?
Yeah, I do.
There a as you were going through it, a lot of times people will say, there was a certain incident or a certain call, or maybe even a coworker or something, that something happened in dispatch that just kind of made you realize, I'm in the right place, I'm where I'm supposed to be. Was there a moment like that for you?
Maybe not exactly like that, but
Mhm.
I do remember very vividly. I was still in training, and I was sitting there I had a little old lady on the phone, and she was just rambling on, telling
Mhm.
me everything that, really wasn't needed for me to know, or
Mhm.
what her purpose of calling was. And my supervisor looks over and she says, "When are you going to interrupt this lady and get the information that you need?" And I had always been raised, you don't interrupt people when they're talking, especially
Right.
elderly people. You just,
Yes.
and she just says, "You have to do it." And I did it that day, and I have not had a problem ever since.
There are those moments, right? There's those moments when you're learning how to do everything, and I was the same way. My parents were the same way with my siblings and I. It was, You respect your elders rather. You don't interrupt, like exactly the same thing. And for me though, one of the calls that I remember that kind of stick with me, not so much the call itself, but what happened during that time. I was towards the end of my training, and our old CAD system, it was really finicky. Like you had to have the township code and the ORI, the incident type. Like you would have to make sure that piece was in before you move forward. And for whatever reason, I could not remember the incident type code for domestic. And they ended up eventually changing it to DV, but before it was DOME. I don't know why it was that, but for whatever reason, I couldn't remember it. And I'm going through it, and I muted my microphone. I looked at my trainer and I said, I can't get this thing to go in. I need you to take it over. And she comes up to me and she goes, no. And I said, okay. She goes, take a breath. You've got this. You can do this. And that specific trainer, I remember the way she put it is someone else explained it this way. And it was basically what she was saying as well was, I might let you take in a little water, but I'm not going to let you drown. And that always stuck with me. So like every domestic call after that, I was like, give me all of those domestics. It was almost like, that happened. Now that's my call type, and I'm going to continue doing that. And you end up learning as you're going on, and like you said, your own rhythm. So how long did it take you to get through the training?
The training here is about a 6-month long process. You start out with, orientation, getting to know the agency and all the parts, and then you go through call taking. First with, non-emergency calls, then you move on to 911s. Then you go through fire and EMS training because we do dispatch for fire and EMS in the sheriff's office. And then last is the law enforcement. And so it's a 6-month process.
Which one would you say is your favorite? Working EMS, fire, law enforcement, or just like call taking, like which part of what you do would you say is kind of like your favorite? Or do you like all of it equally?
I think I like all of it equally. However, I prefer law enforcement just because it's more of a steadier pace. I feel like the time passes by quicker, just constantly doing stuff. But I surprise myself sometimes with fire and EMS, especially with our continuing education that we have to do. I feel like I know less about fire and EMS, but then when I am testing on it and doing things like that, I kind of surprise myself, like, oh, I actually do know something.
You like flip the hair back, like check it out, like I've got this. Yeah, no, that is always some of those good moments when you find that, and then maybe later on, someone that you're working with is talking about something, you're like, wait, I can help you with that, and that's another feeling of satisfaction as well when you're going through it. At my center, we did all disciplines of public safety as well. And for me, I really enjoyed radios, but there's something about phones, just like all these calls that are coming in. It's the triage part of it, but also kind of that almost detective type thing as you're listening and picking apart everything that's coming in. How did you feel about when you started developing your dispatch ear? Did that come quickly, or did it take some time to kind of learn how to develop that? Because you don't have it actually, I say that you don't have it, but if you're a parent as well coming into dispatch, you're already trained to listen to every single thing that is going on, or even nieces or nephews or anything like that, because they get into a lot of things. So you're always having to listen. And I think that kind of helped me in dispatch develop that dispatch ear. For you, what was that like for you trying to develop, having to listen to everything that's on a phone call?
Well, when I came to work here, I had been a mother. My oldest was 7 at the time, but I had 5 children, and so I, had that kind of split ear already. Being able to multitask as a parent with multiple children, and so I feel like that came naturally. So it didn't take long for me to adapt.
Do you feel like that was kind of a little bit of training coming into it? Like it
Oh
helped
yeah.
out? It's always something because yeah, kids get into a lot of different things and you learn to listen to like any little sound or even when there's no sound at all, you're like, okay, maybe that's worse.
Mhm.
Like something is definitely up and then you have to go investigate. Now, coming in as a mom as well, I feel like um some of those calls, like when kids are calling, they kind of resonate with you more. I mean, I'm not saying just because we're parents, but I feel like we're able to connect more because we have our own kids as well. And because we're empaths, we end up putting ourselves in the parent's shoes, or even kind of with those kids. Like sometimes you want to reach through and hug them. How was that coming into dispatch and maybe taking some of those calls early on that had to do with kids or parents calling about their kids, and then you just kind of thinking about your own?
Well, I will say that those calls do affect me the most.
Mhm.
Anytime that there's been calls that have involved children, I do tend to just kind of hold on to those a little more than I do other things. I think in our this career, you can, things happen and we have to take call after call after call. And so a lot of times, even though we might have something, you know, you would think would affect you, you have to quickly, so, move on to something else that it tends to kind of make our mind just kind of forget it. And you may not even be able to recall what you did at the end of your shift, just so many calls and, had to process so many things that it sometimes things don't affect you until later on.
Mhm.
Something you drive past somewhere and it reminds you, just happen to remember something. And then those things can bother you.
Right. Yeah, I remember taking, some of those calls and I would come home and at the time, my son who is almost 21 now, he was probably about 4 or 5. And I remember going home after a hard call. And when I opened the door and walked in, he was running up to me and I'm watching him almost in slow motion running up to me and thinking, man, some of these calls that I took today that had to do with these kids, I just hope they're all going to be okay. And he comes up and I gave him a hug, but it was tight enough that he winced. and and he's just like, oh, and I said, oh, I'm sorry. And he says, are you okay? And I said, dad just had a hard day at work. That's all. And I love you, bud. And he's like, oh, I love you too. And I'm like, oh man. But there's those moments, right?
Mhm.
There's those moments that you end up having. And those are also moments as well that when other folks take similar calls, you can talk to them as well and say, I've been there. You're not
Mhm.
alone. I'm there as well. When it comes to that type of emotional support and everything, how do you feel that has been for you and just, I guess, in the center in general? Because there are a lot of centers still that they don't have a peer support team or they don't have any type of support at all. It's just like you just take the call and you go to the next one.
I think for our particular center, we because we work, we have our squads that we work with, and
Mhm.
we become very tight, and we care about each other. We can kind of read each other if we feel like somebody's had a hard time with something, and we do try to help each other out. Make sure that we're okay.
Mhm. That's good. That is very good because, like I said, there are some places that don't have that, and there's some dispatchers that I've spoken to who have gone to different agencies to make way less money, and they're way further away, so that they can be in a place where they feel that they're not only supported, but that the people there actually care.
Mhm.
And I feel like just listening to your director and your sheriff talk and everything about how things are around here, you definitely have that support here. So that's a very good thing. Now, if you as long as you feel comfortable, is there a call out of your 8 years, like maybe a call that kind of sticks with you?
Well, just like you were just talking about, getting home and your son running to you.
Hmm.
We had a call about a little boy that was by a pit bull one time, and um, just being on the phone, hearing the callers, her screams, hearing the kids' screams and knowing what had happened. We also have debriefings after hard calls like that, and where we get together with everybody that's involved, from us to EMS to the fire department, law enforcement, and we all just kind of sit there and just kind of go through from beginning to end, just sharing what our part of it was, and just being able to come together. And so one particular that call in particular, after having the debrief and and hearing about just the physical descriptors of the kid, and they were talking about what kind of clothes he had on and what kind of shoes he had on. And when that particular fireman described his shoes, that day when I got home, my son's shoes were the exact same sitting by the door.
Oh, geez.
And I just saw the shoes and I just picked them up and threw them right in the trash because, I just could not look at them.
Right.
Because they were just an immediate remembrance of that child.
Yeah, it's and triggers are real. That's a trigger right there. Yeah, it's the same as folks who have taken a call that is on a street that they might pass by going home, and they end up deciding I'm not going to go down that way. It's the same way with maybe music that was playing in the background when you were talking to someone who ended up passing away. It's the same type of thing. It's a trigger. So I definitely feel you there. I know definitely know what you mean when you talk about that and just ditching the shoes. So going into the wrap up of this episode, it's been awesome to have you on here, hear more about your story and your perspective on a lot of different things. Now, actually, before I get to this one question, I do want to ask you this because you are a supervisor and CTO, and I wanted to know, actually, what was your, I guess, your inspiration to be a CTO, a certified training officer? And the reason I ask is because it's always one or two things. Either someone had really good training and good trainers, and it inspired them to continue that good cycle of continuing education and really kind of molding that literal next generation of 911 that's coming in. Or for some people, it's because they didn't have the greatest trainers or whatever, and they don't want others to have to go through what they did. So for you, what was kind of your inspiration to be a trainer?
Well, growing up, I actually wanted to be a teacher.
Mm-hmm.
But then I realized that I like my own kids,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't want to be around other people's kids.
You'd be surprised. There's a lot of people that say that too. It's like, yeah.
So, but I had great trainers. I mean, all the ones that I had, they were just fantastic. And they didn't coddle me either. They gave me what I needed, and then they were like, all right, here you go.
Yeah.
Do it. You know how to do it. Just do it. And so I tend to use that same philosophy, when I'm training somebody. I'm here to help you, but once you reach that point of being able to do it on your own, you need to do it.
Right.
And so I just kind of, she was like, no, you know what you're doing.
You've got this. Yeah. That is awesome. So there was some inspiration from years prior of wanting to be a teacher as it is. So that is awesome. So then going into the wrap up of this, the final question is, from this 8 years, actually going on 9 years in your public safety career, if you could go back in time, but talk to yourself in the beginning of your dispatch career to give yourself a little bit of advice. Again, it's not to change anything because I feel as though sometimes, whether it be a hard lesson learned or experience or whatever, it brings us to who we are today. But if you could go back just to talk to yourself and give yourself some advice going into this profession, what would you say to yourself?
Don't be so hard on yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think in this profession we can be. Sometimes you have those calls where I could have done this, or I could have done this, or I did hear that, and you just have to go with what you have and then just try to do your best and keep people safe.
Perfect. Thank you so very much for what you do in this profession and for being on and sharing your story. I appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
So hang tight one moment. And for those who are watching and listening, if you have any comments, questions, or you ever want to be a guest on the show, you can email us, and that's going to be wttpodcast@gmail.com. But the easiest way to do all of this is to simply go to links, and that's links with 2 i's.co/WTT podcast. You'll find everything there: email, social media, where to hear the latest episode, all of it. This episode is sponsored by InDigital, a leader Next Gen Core Services, and you can see this on Facebook, YouTube, as well as X and LinkedIn Live. And you can listen 24/7 on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, your favorite podcasting app, and withinthetrenches.net. Have a good one, everyone, and we will see you all in the next one. Imagine listening to someone's worst day every single day. Imagine listening as someone experiences life through their worst nightmare to the miracle of birth or a life saved. I'm Ricardo Martinez, a former 911 dispatcher, and for years, I've been recording the voices of a hidden world, ours. I've provided a space for 911 dispatchers to share their powerful stories. It started as a peer support session and continues. Dispatchers sitting together, sharing out loud, or writing down what they couldn't say. Some stories will grip you. Stories of heartbreak, resilience, and calls that haunt us long after the line goes quiet. But imagine listening is more than heavy emotion. It's about healing. It's about laughing through the chaos, lifting each other up, and reminding the world that dispatchers are human too. The lighthearted will balance the heavy. Experience the power of storytelling, a podcast for the thin gold line and those who want to understand it. This is Imagine Listening. Your worst day is our everyday. Subscribe now wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts.